For over 30 years, we've been more concerned about the meaning we convey in our projects more than the design. We're more interested in what the Norwegian Opera and Ballet is communicating in its project more than its design. For almost 10 years ago, Europe's largest independent research community came to us and wanted to research how we work with problem solving and our creativity in order to innovate. They found this pretty interesting and invited in different organizations to review if lawyers or people working with energy are working differently than architects and designers in their creative process. We found to be pretty similar, and we developed a book that is also a do-it-yourself handbook, but also a research report that are describing 10 drivers for innovative work. 3 of these drivers we are working with in our conceptual workshops. Those are prepping, zooming out, and getting physical. Prepping is about to get insights and information about the projects. We want to share the information about the project so we can build a context together, and also that we get the information at the same time as a group so we can work with concepts based upon that information and insights. Now we know that there's no correlation between the amount of information that you give out and the meaning you are communicating. So the next driver is called zooming out. In order to take all the information you have and start to create meaning in it. So you do that by taking a couple of steps out of the context and getting an overview, not to simplify, but in order to make the complex more understandable. We do that by working with conceptual springboards. And the last driver is getting physical or getting visual in order to not only prototype concepts, but also make means for a different discussion about our project and the concept that we are trying to develop together with you in the workshop. Our first project in Snøhetta is the Library of Alexandria. And it was a competition where 500 architects were competing, a global competition where we all sent in anonymous design proposals. We based our design on the concept of the microchip. And the microchip, in the context of a library, is relevant in the terms of it is a digital way of storing competence and not analog, which is very much what's happening in a library. Now, not only mirroring the design of a microchip into the design of the building, we also used the vertical insights of the binary language, of combining zeros and one into a language to steer and direct our design choices. So half of the building is underneath the surface, and when we talked about history, we had to talk about the future, and when we designed the facade, it is designed by constructions that are letting indirect light into the reading room in the library. So we're using the insight of a microchip into making design choices, and also how we want to communicate the project and make meaning for it. And we think that the reason why the project is almost as our first sketches, 13 years before the process started, is because we created this meaning around the project. The concept, the microchip, helped us to create a meaningful project. The concept behind our banknote design is the beauty of boundaries. The beauty of boundaries is given us help to design the banknote based upon the strategy of the Central Bank of Norway's objective for the redesign. We know that the coast of Norway has had a huge meaning for people living in Norway, people visiting Norway, and how we have developed our society. We know that our coast has given us enormously amount of resources, even if it's food or energy. And we wanted to create a concept that are conveying this importance. And the concept, the beauty of boundaries, is a way to talk about when something beautiful is happening, when differences meet. When the water meets the rocks on the coast, or when a mountain ends up in the flat land, it is a boundary where interesting things happen. We know that when differences meet, we create something that we are more interested in. And we then developed the design by creating different parts as different elements. We made rational, concrete pixels that are in contrast to a soft pattern. And putting these two together is indirectly communicating the beauty of boundaries. Also, we used the Beaufort wind scale to derive the sizes of not only the pixels, but also the wavelength of the soft pattern. And in that sense, we know that the 50 kroner bill is derived by 1.3 meter per second wind, and the 1,000 kroners has the largest wind scale, which is 20.8 meter per second. So we use the C's measurements tools to create the design, and we can create stories about meaning about a banknote design that we find interesting in its small scale because it's so social. It's so social because it exchanges hands so much when we are creating this design, and that's where it becomes tools for talking about the strategy of the Central Bank of Norway creating this new banknote. When we developed the new visual identity for the Norway's national parks, we created a concept called Portal. And Portal became important because we had two tasks in this commission. And the first one was to make sure that we can increase visitors in the parks, that we can increase tourism into something that is publicly owned and you want to be used. At the same time, the national parks also needs protection. We need to preserve the national parks, and the department working with that also needed a concept that created meaning for them. So the portal has both the inviting attribute, but also the protectiveness, almost like it's a protecting frame of something you find valuable. So the concept portal then became not only important for our choice of logo and the parts of the visual identity, but also how we developed the communication. We used the portal to derive how we made the tone of voice and also the style of our communication means, and also how we communicate to the society at large. Our most popular project is the underwater restaurant on the tip of the southeast point of Norway. It's called Under, and we created a concept called Immerse. And immerse, by dipping something under the surface of the water, is pretty obvious. But it also has another connotation by defining immerse of how to deep dive into a subject. And we think that the concept is conveying meaning for the project that has become important for it, which is that it is a multi-functional project. It's not only a restaurant, it's not only architecture and design, it is also a research community for understanding marine biology and marine life. We use the projects in order to understand how marine life can help us making more sustainable food transportations and food sources to not only the community but also the restaurants. The facade of the building is made with the condition that clams can grow on the building, so it becomes a farm in itself. We are using the building to observe over time the marine development of fish behavior and understanding how we can use this more in a sustainable form. And we think this multifunctional project is the reason why it's become so popular. And then the concept is important because it's architecture, it's landscapes, interior, it's product design and digital design, all based upon the same concept. And then the concept is helping us to make a holistic project. So it's directly or indirectly presenting the same thinking. Many believe that the concept behind the opera here in Oslo is based upon an abstraction of iceberg floating around in the beautiful Norwegian fjords. That is not the concept. The concept is thresholds, and we created thresholds in order to create meaning when you are walking through your life into the world of illusions. When you go from everyday life into a theater, you are walking over a threshold, going from one state to another. So in order to make the architecture and design conveying thresholds, we created the bridge over to the public plaza and the forefront of the opera as narrow as possible, so it's perceived big on the plaza. We created the entrance as low as possible so that the foyer is perceived as large and voluminous. When you look through the very ice-cold glass into the warm German oak that is from the interior, it represents thresholds. We know that when you are into the very black theater hall, you are in a steep contrast to the white marble. And all of this is happening because we think this is important for what's happening on stage. Because on stage, when you're watching a theater play, that could be an opera or seeing a ballet or even listening to music, you need the thresholds in the arts. You need to make a shift in the drama in order to make it interesting. If everyone loves each other, it becomes pretty boring. You need a change. You need someone to not get their loved ones, or maybe someone is having a conflict of some sort, or maybe even someone has to die in order to make it interesting. So then the architecture and design is conveying what is the most important for a cultural institution, which is what's happening on stage. Now that people are co-creating the concept with us, thinking that it's a floating iceberg around in the fjords, that's applaudable. We like that very much. It is great that people are co-creating ideas and thinking of it. It is almost like you're listening to a very easy, likable pop song that you get tired of after the third time you hear it. But musicians like Neil Young or Bob Dylan, you probably need some time to learn it and get acquainted with it. And after a while, it's something that becomes sort of a musical friend for life. And that's what we're trying with our concepts, that we are not too direct, that we are making more meaningfulness and not something that is immediately something you like or fall in love with. It is something that is acquired over time. And then it is a proof of us having a great concept for the project. So concept in Snøhetta is about higher level thinking. It's not a design idea or something that is proposed to come out in society or on the market. It is about conveying meaning in the projects. We want to use this higher level thinking to make the complex more understandable, and that we all, as a group, both Snøhetta and you, have the same basis to create design that then become tools for gaining our objectives in the end of the projects. With that, we wish you good luck with the process, and we hope you also have some fun under the way.